Hundreds of numbered graves populate this forested area outside Izium. The site was discovered after Russian troops posted photos on social media pages. As investigators perform the grisly task of exhuming bodies, they must be careful. Russian troops often booby-trap the graves.
If it beeps on the place where our brothers are lying, that tells us that the enemy may have left something like an explosive device, a grenade or something to try to kill more of us.
We're aware of reports to which more than 400 bodies were found in a collective grave in Izium. Our colleagues in Ukraine in the Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine are following up on these allegations.
It's a sight all too common in areas recently liberated from Russian forces, and it joins a long history of atrocities against Ukrainians. During the winter of 1932 and 33, Russian troops were sent into Ukraine to confiscate essentially all the food, something that has come to be known as the Holodomor. In that event, more than 4 million people died, mostly just from starvation and exposure. This monument here in a park in downtown Kyiv is to commemorate the many children who died. You see this painfully skinny girl clutching a stalk of wheat here. And it has to be mentioned that there are monuments like this to Russian atrocities all around Ukraine. And if you go to Russia, you're not going to find monuments like this because Ukrainians haven't attacked their neighbors to the east. It's always come this direction. Just north of the city stands another deserted forest once known as the end of the line for anyone who didn't support Stalin's regime. It's called Bykivnia. These lists of names written on the walls here in Bykivnia represent just some of the hundreds of thousands of people who were murdered by the Soviet Union and then dumped into mass graves right in this area. And the Russians are again making lists of people in a process called filtration. It's happening all across the occupied areas of Ukraine right now, and it's affecting millions of people. And if you take filtration to its obvious conclusion, what you end up with is another place like Bykivnia. Reports from occupied areas tell of a three-step filtration process whereby Russian troops try to identify anyone who does not agree with Vladimir Putin.
They sit down like this, facing away from you. They start flipping through your phone, smiling, and his partner says, "What is this?" "Well, what are you doing in this photo?" "And I see you are a Baptist." But that is the easy part compared to what comes next.
Anyone suspected of disloyalty is sent to a filtration camp. There, beatings and torture are reportedly common. Those who survive are often forcibly relocated to remote parts of Russia.
So they try to replace native population for those who come from far east of Russia, for example. We see this tactic we see in Crimea after 2014. They try to replace all ex-Ukrainians, for example, bureaucrats, for Russian bureaucrats. The tactic of Russian Empire and Soviet Union is to change the population, the picture of population.
So far, it's estimated nearly 1.5 million Ukrainians have been sent to Russia. According to survivors, many who refuse end up in unmarked graves. The full extent of the atrocities committed against Ukrainians has yet to be revealed. But even 6 months after the beginning of this war, there are still people that are living their lives in bomb shelters like this one all across this country. And it's not the sound of explosions outside that scares them. What scares them is that they'll be forgotten by people like you.
We want the world to know what's really happening and what the Russian occupation has led to. Bucha, Mariupol, and now, unfortunately, Izium. Russia leaves death everywhere, and they must be held responsible for it. The world must hold Russia to real responsibility for this war.
From Ukraine, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.